Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. It is mid-August in 2020. This is going to be a flea market finds episode. While going through some things here in the shop and putting some things away and doing some organizing, yeah, you wouldn't know it, but believe it or not, I actually do occasionally try and do a little bit of cleaning up and organizing. I actually came across a small lot of items that I have absolutely no recollection of making a flea market finds video on. So it's got a bit of a mystery. To make matters worse, I actually haven't been able to figure out where this stuff came from. So we're just going to blow through a few quick things because they're nice items. Several of them are items that I decided to keep for myself. I didn't bother putting them up on Steve's Basement, my Facebook tool sale page or anything, which by the time this video airs, Steve's Basement will probably have gone public. It's been a private page. Previously, I started the page and I only invited people in who had bought items from me in the past, so it was kind of a small, exclusive little club. Then some things happened. It kind of forced my hand and made me decide to go all in. So, without further ado, let's jump into this flea market finds episode. All right, first things first, let's blow through this small group of items right here, which are the mystery items that I do not even recall where I got these. First up is this pair of digital calipers. These might look like a cheap pair of calipers, but these are actually the DigiCal series. These particular ones are badged brown and sharp, but I'm almost positive these are made by Tessa. I actually have been using these quite a bit lately, and as much as I like my Mitutoyo Absolutes, I actually have grown very fond of this little digital caliper right here. It's got an auto off feature, so basically you just leave it alone and it will go to sleep by itself to preserve the battery. They work perfect. Unfortunately, no case. This is how I got them, but this is a great set of calipers. So I got these here and they work perfectly fine, and I think I'm going to keep those for myself as a backup. I like them. Next up is a Mitutoyo dial depth gauge. It's kind of neat. So, you know, I've had several depth gauges, but this is the first one I've had that has a dial built into it, and it's a Mitutoyo, so it's not a it's not a cheap Chinese piece of junk. It's a Japanese import of decent quality. It seems to work perfectly fine. It's got a coarse and fine adjustment, so you can lock this upper, instead of locking it here like a regular vernier, you can lock it here and then use this thumb wheel right here to do a fine adjustment. So I don't have one this style and I kind of like it, so I think I'm going to keep this also. It's got a dirty face. Other than that, it looks pretty good. I don't remember if I ever even tried cleaning this. Well, I can tell you right now I haven't tried cleaning this because it's cleaning up actually pretty decent. Could use a little more, there's some gunk down in here that needs to be cleaned off, but that actually, that's pretty good. I like that. And a couple of random items here in this bag. This is a nice brown and sharp, US made brown and sharp micrometer, 2 to 3 inch. It's clean as a whistle. This thing looks brand new. It's got the plastic locking lever, but it isn't broken. It's got carbide faces, and I don't remember, is this a 10th micrometer? I think it is. Yeah, this has got the vernier on it over here, so this is a 10th reading micrometer. So it'll go to 0.0001 resolution, and it has the friction style barrel here, which is, it will turn in this direction with some slip, so that automatically helps you get to the right amount of tightening where you're tight enough on there to get a good measurement, but you're not springing the frame and altering that measurement. And if you go to turn it backwards, it locks. So it only turns in one direction, and when you go to turn it the other way, it just locks so that it doesn't slip when you're trying to open it up fast. Okay? I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do with that. That may be a keeper for myself, or that may go up on Steve's Basement. And the last of these mystery items that I cannot discern the pedigree of is this Starrett clamp. This is a part number PT99437, and what's in here is what looks to be a brand new Starrett indicator rod clamp. So this has got the groove in it, which makes it real easy to attach this to the ways on a small lathe, for instance. And in the box here we've got 2 rods. This looks like an original rod. This, because of the different color metal, I don't know whether or not this is it's a smaller diameter rod, so it's good to have the 2 of them in there, but this might not be original to this set. I don't know. And then for some unexplainable reason there's a lone Allen wrench in here, which makes no sense at all because there is no Allen screws on this. So I've got some of these, so I could probably offer this up for sale. Alright, so now the next item up is an item I scored at the tool store, the used tool store, about 3 weeks ago. It was the only item I bought, I think. I went in there and unfortunately there was just nothing else there that really interested me or that I thought I could use for the inventory. So I scored this little Starrett surface gauge for 15 bucks. It's nice because it's got the clamp and the scribe. They aren't missing, and it's a genuine Starrett. It's clearly marked. This is a number 56. This is probably a 56A. I think they had a letter series in these for size, or I don't remember. Maybe that's the other model that had those. But this is a nice little Starrett surface gauge. Condition looks pretty good. The pins move and aren't missing. Could use a little bit of cleaning up here on the top. It's got that interesting, almost like an acid wash mottled finish on it, which I kind of like, but I'm probably going to sell this. I think I have a small one of these, and I definitely have a large one, and you know, I paid 15 for this, so I'm not going to make a ton of money on it, but I figured what the heck, this way I could pass it on to one of my members at Steve's Basement and make somebody else, you know, happy with a nice little Starrett surface gauge. Now on to the actual flea market items from this flea market that I picked. I got up really early in the morning and drove about almost an hour to get there, and I'm going to warn you right now, it wasn't that great. I don't know if it was even worth my time and effort of going out, but I was desperate. Alright, so the first buy of the day at this flea market, I came upon one of these dealers who does cleanouts, and these guys, they don't know a V-block from V8. The bad part about that is they don't know that they don't know enough that if they came across the clamps for this, they wouldn't recognize what they were for or what they were, and they might toss them out. So that's unfortunate, because this pair right here is actually a pretty decent pair. These are PPSB 40, 36, 45s. So that means they're 40 millimeter by 36 millimeter by 45 millimeter. They're import, but they're decent quality. And they're actually pretty darn clean, but no clamps. So that's unfortunate. This one is just a random V-block, no clamp to be found anywhere. It actually seems like it was pretty decently done though. And that's a good little, you know, for on the bench beater V-block. And this little angle plate, again, no name, shop made. Plenty of holes with, you know, threads in them, making it kind of versatile. A little handy thing to have. And I just looked in the bottom of that box I was digging through, and I found 3 center drills. That's actually a pretty nice one there, the extra long one. 2 stub drills and 2 random taps. Put it all together in a pile, and ended up getting $4 for this. Great deal for $4. Still not enough though to make it worth my while to have driven all that way out there. But hey, you know, the only way you're gonna find out is to go out and hunt. Next, I stumbled upon a tool dealer. This guy had all totes full of all kinds of tools and hardware of all different types, and a lot of it had been picked through probably before I got there. But I happened to stumble across this Amprobe case that actually does have an Amprobe meter still in it. This is a genuine Amprobe made in the USA. This is a model ACD-3. The bad part about it is, well, it's got a couple issues. Issue number one, there are no leads in it. Issue number 2, I have no idea if it works. I couldn't find, at his spot, I couldn't find a screwdriver small enough to fit this, because I wanted to open this up and see if it was corroded inside. So in the end, when we were going back and forth on price, I finally got him to agree to take my $5, because I pointed out to him that for all I know, this thing might not work at all, and if we open this up, it might be all corroded inside. There is some corrosion on hasp over here, this part. So, but anyways, so this is, the truth is, I really am not too concerned about the leads being missing, because the leads are there so that you can do a amperage test with a direct connection in circuit. And the main reason I wanted this was because I wanted a clamp-on probe. I had been working on something a while back, and one of my viewers commented about, you know, don't I have an amp probe? And I actually do have one somewhere, but I haven't seen it in such a long time, because I mean, I rarely needed it. Oh, that's good. That looks clean as a whistle in there. So glad to see there is no serious signs of corrosion there. Boy, what a, I gotta tell you, for a, what's supposed to be decent quality product, this is really kind of a cheesy little setup here on the battery connection. Oh, well, I should shut my mouth and stop complaining, really. I am low on 9-volt batteries, so had this couple of batteries laying around. I don't even know if they're any good. We shall see. Well, that's a good sign. Actually lights up. So is this the power? I'm guessing this is the power switch here. Maybe not. I don't know. Oh, this little knob right here apparently is the power switch. Okay, so I guess you push it in to turn it on. You have to push and turn to keep it locked on. So the way these work is you have to put them around one of the 2 leads supplying power. So this is for AC circuit. So if I just put it around a cord for a light or something like that, I'm not going to get a reading, because both conductors will be inside this round toroidal inductor. What you need is, you need to have one of the 2 leads in here and one outside. I don't know what this switch does. Alright, I was able to find a PDF manual online, and C stands for continuance, and P stands for peak. So if you have it in continuous, as long as it's hooked up and it's turned on, it's constantly, it's reading the current as it is right at that moment. If you set it to peak, you can actually leave this on, and come back a little later, and then you could see what the maximum current reached was, apparently, which is kind of neat. So that's nice. Turns out this is not for direct current reading in a circuit. This actually has a built-in voltmeter, so you can actually hook up leads to here and have an AC voltmeter handy. And believe it or not, this little weird port on the side here is actually apparently for an ohm meter. So kind of weird, but it's all built into one unit. You know, I wouldn't probably bother ever using this for anything other than just clamp on current reading. And I checked the specs. Apparently this is good for up to 99.9 amps. So more than sufficient for most of the stuff that I probably would end up wanting to use it on. So I'm pretty happy with that. It seems to be working perfectly fine. This is a push to read type of switch. So the idea is you just push it when you want to get a reading. And if you want it to stay on, again, you just push it in and rotate it, and it locks in the on position. So $5 for that. Hell of a score. Well, it looks like this is a pretty old one. Even though it's got the digital readout, LCD display, so it's not ancient, but as far as these amp probes go, the model numbers here on eBay for used ones that have sold run, like model number 10 and 14. There's an ACD1 right there, sold for $15. I mean, I see some newer ones here that didn't sell for much more than that. All right, here we go. Here's the ACD2, sold for $23. I think that has a higher current rating though, believe it or not. I think the 2 and the 4 have like a 300 amp current rating, and I think the 1 and the 3 have a 100 amp. So, all right, I'm not too broken up about it. It only cost me $5, and if I use it once, it's worth it. The next dealer I came across, I bought this pile of stuff from, and a little bit of a story here. This gentleman, apparently he's selling his house and going to be moving, so he brought a bunch of stuff out. So he's not, best as I could tell, he's not a dealer who comes out there regularly. And one of the things he did was he had a whiteboard at the end of his table with a whole list of things that he had for sale that were large things that he hadn't schlepped out to the flea market, but he wanted to let people know that he had them. And one of the things that caught my eye actually led me to getting his name and phone number, and then going out about a week later and meeting him at his house to take a look at this item. And I ended up, what it ended up being was a large workbench. But the interesting thing he said about the workbench, he seemed to be stressing how great the workbench was in the listing, that it was very old, had a heavy metal frame, had a thick oak top, and that he was asking $150 or best offer, and it was, I believe, 10 feet long. I was like, well, okay, that's interesting. But the other thing that I thought was interesting was it said it included 2 vices. And when I asked him about the bench, he told me that it was his father's or his grandfather's. And this gentleman was, plus 60, I'd say. And that led me to think, this thing's probably been around for a long time. I wonder what these vices are that are on it. So I asked him if he had any photographs, and he pulled some up on his phone and was able to show me. And I couldn't tell from looking, but I was like, boy, he said one of the vices is a woodworker's vice, the kind that has the clamping style like this and a hand wheel down at the end. And the other one was, he just described it as a regular vice. I said, well, how roughly how big are the jaws on it? He says, I think it's a 6-inch. As soon as I heard that, I was like, wow. So I was thinking I might go out there and buy the bench and the vices just for the vices, or close to it, because it was $150 or best offer. It might be worth taking a look. And Mark had this project. My son Mark has this project he wants me to work on with him, that we've kind of started a little bit on. He wants me to make a desk for him for his computer. So he wants like a table, and he'll just put he'll put a file cabinet with a couple of drawers underneath it. He doesn't want anything elaborate with drawers. Nothing that is going to involve us being major furniture makers. So it seemed to me like, there's a no-brainer. If we could get a good butcher block tabletop or something like that on the cheap, cut it to size, get some maybe gas pipe fittings and legs, we could put together a nice, cool-looking, unique desk for him that he could take when he eventually leaves the house. So I was like, okay, now thick oak top, old workbench top might be just a ticket. And I was like, boy, if it's 10 feet, I might be able to make 2 of them. So I went out there and I took a look at it. So that's going to be coming up in a future episode. I'm going to just showcase that vice on its own, because it's kind of cool. And it's too big and heavy for me to lug down here right now, so it's actually still out. I moved it to the back of one of the pickup trucks. But the first thing I spotted at this guy's table was this item in the bag here, and when I asked him how much he wanted for it, he said $2. So there was a no-brainer for me to buy this for $2. I said, I just have one favor to ask. I said, do you have any plastic bags? Because this thing is a mess, and I didn't want to put this in. I had my niece on that day, so everything was going in the trunk of the car, and I didn't want this oily mess in the trunk of the car. But what we've got is, yes, another Eagle brand oil can. This is a 66F, so this has got the flexible nozzle on it, and it's leaking pretty good. You see right there, $2. So there was no haggling involved in that one. And those of you who watch my channel know that I regularly show these that I get them for when I can get them on the cheap. I've got so many of these now that I get really cheap on these. I don't buy them now if I can't get them for $5 or less. I'm looking at right now from where I'm sitting here in the shop, I'm looking at 3 more. So that's minimum number 4. So anyways, I bought those. I looked through some stuff he had. I was weeding through some stuff, and I came across this spanner, and I looked at it and it's like, oh, that's a nice Williams, and it's in great shape. Asked him how much he wanted for that. He said $1. So that was no brainer. I may already have this size. If I do, then I'll offer it for sale. If I don't, then I'll add it to my collection. And then he said, well, he said, I got the other type here too. He dug around and he found this one. Now this one's a little hard to, it's a little stiff, but the pins aren't broken. They don't look really bad. This is also a nice little spanner. And this is a Armstrong number 482. And he said, I could have this one for $1. So again, no brainer. I'll buy these all day long for $1 a piece, as many as you have. And then I found some breakers in a bucket he had there, a bunch of these breakers, and they're QO style square D, which is what my panels here at the house use. So I'm always on the lookout for these because I want to put a sub panel in and add some more circuits for the workshop. So if I can buy a good used QO breaker for 50 cents or $1 a piece, I usually do. I'll take a chance on them. And then he said, you know what, you could just take these. So there was only 3 QO single poles. And so he threw those in basically for free. So that was really nice of him to do.